Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's Friday night, of course, Shabbat, and we're going to be beginning with service number 2, which you'll find on page 75. And I'm going to ask Natalia to come and bless the candles.
Sorry. Should I read this too?
Yes, please.
You shall call the Sabbath a delight. These lights we kindle are a symbol of joy. May their brightness lift our spirits and fill our hearts with happiness and peace. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav, letzivanu lechadli ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Amen. Sabbath has descended to enfold us in its mantle of peace. It brings to us the precious gift of time to embrace family and friends, to reflect more deeply on the meaning and purpose of our lives, and to worship in the beauty of holiness. May our Sabbaths always be sanctuaries of love and devotion, bringing contentment to our hearts, happiness to our homes, and blessing to our people. And on the top of page 76, we join in Shalom Aleichem.
I'm going to use the tune that was pretty much the last tune Debbie Friedman ever composed. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem LaShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Bakuri l'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shulchem l'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh
It's like this song. It's based on a bit of a folk tale, a bit of a midrash. The idea that every Shabbat, two angels go into every Jewish home, and there's a good angel and a not so good angel, and look around, and if everything is ready for Shabbat, and if the family are there and talking together, and everything is nice and calm, and it's clear that it's a family getting on, and that then the good angel blesses the family and says, and may every Shabbat be like this one. But if it's chaos and there's no food on the table and everyone's screaming at each other, then unfortunately then the bad angel gets to say, yes, well, may every Shabbat be like this one. So I just think of that little story whenever I hear this song, and we of course hope that it is a Shabbat of peace and holiness for us, and that we will be blessed with that for the coming week. We continue on page 77, and we read responsively. The Eternal One reigns, let the earth rejoice.
Let many arms be glad.
Clouds and darkness surround you.
Righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne.
Your lightnings illumine the world.
The earth sees and trembles.
Mountains melt like wax before you, O God.
Before the ruler of all the earth.
The heavens proclaim your righteousness.
And all the peoples behold your glory.
Zion hears and is glad.
The daughters of Judah rejoice in your judgments.
For you are supreme over all the earth.
You are exalted from all gods.
Light dawns for the righteous.
And joy for the upright in heart.
Let the righteous rejoice in you.
And give thanks to your holy name.
And we join in Yadid Nefesh.
Yidid nefesh ha'arachaman, Yidid nefesh ha'arachaman, Moshav avdecha, el rasonecha, Moshav avdecha, la 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 la. El Ratzonecha Yaruch Avdecha Ka'oyel Ishtachaveicha El Muhadarecha.
Is that it? Show yourself, beloved, and spread over me the shelter of your peace. Illumine the world with your presence, and we will rejoice and be glad in you. Hurry, loved one, the holy day is come. Be gracious to us, as in the days of old. And we turn to page 91, and we join in Lachadodi.
Before we get into the familiar tune, I'd just like to start with a bit of a melody that I heard at Beavis Marks years ago. So it's Sephardic, and I just think it's very beautiful. echad, Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, L'Hashem ol tiferet v'litilah. L'chad oni l'chad kala, B'nei Shabbat v'kalala. L'chad oni l'chad kala, B'nei Shabbat v'kalala. L'chad Shabbat l'hu v'nelcha, Ki makol ha'bracha, Rosh mikedem nasucha, Tzofar Shlevak Shabbat Tehillah. L'chad oni l'chad kala, B'nei Shabbat v'kalala. L'chad oni l'chad kala, B'nei Shabbat v'kalala. L'chad Shabbat l'hu v'nelcha, Ki makol ha'bracha, Rosh mikedem nasucha, Tzofar Shlevak Shabbat Tehillah. L'chad oni l'chad kala, B'nei Shabbat v'kalala. L'chad oni l'chad kala, B'nei Shabbat v'kalala. Etorri, Kira oret, Uri-oris, Yedaveri, Kavod Adonai l'chad. L'chad oni l'chad kala, B'nei Shabbat v'kalala. L'chad oni l'chad kala, B'nei Shabbat v'kalala. Oi v'shalom ha'terefana, Ram v'simcha v'tzola, Togevonei ha'tzerola, bo'ikala. L'chad oni l'chad kala, B'nei Shabbat v'kalala. L'chad oni l'chad kala, B'nei Shabbat v'kalala.
Now that we've properly welcomed Shabbat in, I'd love to know who's online with us and see if we can welcome them in as well.
We've got Holly Goldring, who's got a fantastic version of the Hardo D, beautiful service. We've got Sarah Alston, Julie Kanishi, Jill and Norman, Hyman, Nellie Ennifer, Deborah Wilson, Sybil Gilbert, Annalie Sanderson, Sandra Weber, Louisa Michelson, Carol Goldring, and Mike Michelle Lafitte.
Ah, lovely. Well, welcome everyone. It's nice to know that you are all there as well, and I'm sure Vince appreciates the compliment about the music so far. So we come now to page 92, and we rise for the call to public worship, the Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Adonai
we can resume our seats. And we continue, page 93. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aruvim, b'chokhmah poteach she'arim, u'bitvuna mishanei itim, u'mechalif et hazmanim, u'mesader et hakokavim b'mishmerotechem, b'rakia keretzono. Borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, u'ma'avir yom, u'mevi layla, u'mavdil ben yom u'vein layla. Adonai tzevaot shemo, Baruch atah Adonai, ma'ariv aravim. We praise you, O God, whose word makes evening fall.
This melody for Ahavat Olam it's nice to use a melody written by somebody that I've actually met. And this is Dean Staker from Finchley Progressive, one of his several compositions. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Torah u'mitzvot, uchim u'mishpatim otanu lemadata. Alchein Adonai Eloheinu v'shakbeinu, u'chameinu natziach b'chukecha, v'nizak b'divrei toratecha u'mitzvotecha. Le'olam va'ed ki hei chayenu, v'orech yameinu v'neged yomam v'layla b'ahavatecha. Al tazu mimenu Baruch atah Adonai, Ohel amo Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohel amo Yisrael.
Page 94, we rise for the Shema.
Find them as a sign before your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and upon your gate. Ani Adonai Elohechem, I am your God.
Can we resume our seats? We continue at the top of page 95.
Man tizkaru, v'asitem ekol mitzvotav, v'tem kadoshim l'Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti echem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem l'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Let's continue together in English. All this we hold to be true and sure. You alone, Eternal One, are our God, and we are Israel, your people. You have freed us from oppressors and delivered us from tyrants. You led us out of Egypt, forever to serve you in freedom. When we witnessed your power, we praised your name and gave thanks. Willingly, we accepted your rule. Then, full of joy, we sang together. B'ne'amar kifadar Adonai et Yaakov, golo miyad chazak mimenu, Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael.
Ashkivenu, Adonai, Eloheinu, l'shalom. Ashkivenu, Adonai, Eloheinu,
Grant, eternal God, that we may lie down in peace, and let us rise up to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your wise counsel, and for your name's sake be our help. Shield us from sickness and war, from famine and distress, and keep us from wrongdoing. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, for you are our guardian and deliverer. A gracious and merciful God, guard our going out and our coming in, that now and always we may have life and peace. May floating peace descend on us and all who dwell on earth.
Baruch atah Adonai, haporesu kashalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. All yoshvei tevel, ashkiveinu.
On page 97, we rise with tefillah.
Adonai, sefer tiftach, ufi agi tehilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imachot, U'Mevi Gula Livnei V'neihem, L'Ma'an Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei Metim Atah, Rav Lehoshia, Mashiv Haruach, U'Morid HaGeshem, Mazriach HaShemesh, U'Morid HaTal.
Mechacher chayim b'chesed, mechayei metim b'rachamim rabim. Somek noflim v'rofei cholim, u'matir asurim, u'mekayem emunato l'shenei afar. Mi chamocha ba'al gevorot, u'midol melach, melech meimit u'mechayeh, u'matzmiach Yeshua.
Ne'amanata l'chayot metim, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hametim. You are holy, awesome is your name. We have no God but you. We praise you, Eternal One, the Holy God. We can resume our seats. We continue together. We thank you, O God, for this Sabbath day, which calls us to a closer communion with you. Though you are near to us at all times, you reveal your presence most clearly when we direct our thoughts towards you in worship and meditation. In you, O God, our humanity is exalted. You are our life. From you come its greatness, its power, its beauty. Establish in us, we humbly pray, a devotion to you that shall be firm in all the circumstances of life. May this service renew in our hearts the sense of your presence and bring us peace.
Beini Sheshet Yomim Asa Adonai et Hashemayim v'et haaretz u'yom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinefas. Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu Rotzeinu Nafkeinu Kadshenu b'mitzvotecha v'tein chelkeinu v'toratecha Tzavenu mituvecha v'chachenu b'shuatecha v'tahel lebeinu v'avdecha v'emet Ha'ilenu Adonai Eloheinu v'ahavu v'ratzon Shabbat kodshecha Shabbat kodshecha Yanuchu Yisrael Vayanuchu Yisrael Makadeshei Shemecha
Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Say Adonai Eloheinu Baruch Yisrael U'lefiat ha'amav Techaber Tamid avodat Yisrael Amecha Yisrael Amecha Baruch atah
We give thanks that you, eternal one, are our God, as you were the God of our ancestors. You are the rock of our life, the power that shields us in every age. We thank and praise you for our lives, which are in your hand, for our souls, which are in your keeping, for the signs of your presence we encounter every day, and for your wondrous gifts at all times, morning, noon, and night. We praise you, O God, source of goodness, to whom our thanks are due.
Shalom Ra Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam Shalom Ra Kol Yoshvei Tevel Tasim Leolam B'chol shah b'shlomech. Baruch atah Adonai, Osei Shalom.
Take a few moments now for our own thoughts and silent prayers.
Yul ratzon imrechi, Yul ratzon imrechi, Legio levi lefanecha, Adonai suri v'goali. Oh, may the words of my mouth, the meditation of my heart, be acceptable before you. O God, my rock and my redeemer. Oh, say shalom b'mroma. Oh, yeah, say shalom aleinu. Oh, Israel. Oh, Yoshvei Tevel. Amen.
This week, well, it's been an interesting one for all sorts of reasons, as you're about to hear. But as part of my birthday celebrations, we went to see the play Cabaret with some friends. Now, some of you already know that I love the song Cabaret, and the words always speak to me about making the most of life, which is often funny, sometimes challenging, sometimes absurd, and sometimes tragic. Life is all of these things. And in case you don't know the words, they go like this. What good is sitting alone in your room? Come hear the music play. Life is a cabaret, old chum. Come to the cabaret. Put down the knitting, the book and the broom. It's time for a holiday. Life is a cabaret, old chum. Come to the cabaret. Come taste the wine. Come hear the band. Come blow a horn, start celebrating. Right this way, your table's waiting. What good's permitting some prophet of doom to wipe every smile away? Life is a cabaret, old chum. Come to the cabaret. And I've always sort of thought about these words, maybe in the good sense, about sometimes it's good to just kind of take a deep breath and enjoy yourself and relax and have some fun. But there's more to the cabaret that we call life than that. So obviously, I was going to go and see this musical, no matter what. Especially when the theater had been turned into the Kit Kat Club, with just the right amount of glitz and just the right amount of sleaze to balance it out. And as we walked down the stairs, entering via the basement, dodging the electric cables, and walking through the smoke, we were transported to Berlin of the late 1920s. a time of hope when old empires were gone. Jazz was the music, and surrealism the art. And clubs like the Kit Kat thrived as people danced away the old ways and looked to the future. And there we sat in our box, drinking our champagne, enjoying the dancers and the singers who winked at us and occasionally even came and taught to us in the preliminary bits of the play and in some sections of the play. And watching those at the other cabaret tables scattered around in what used to be the stalls, looking very much like patrons of just such an establishment, with a sort of 1920s lamp on their tables and an old-fashioned telephone which occasionally rang, and they'd pick it up and find they were talking to one of the actors. So very, very atmospheric. In the first act, the story unfolds, and we get to know the characters. Ernst, a German, studies English with Cliff, who is an American and who has come there to write a book. And Ernst sends some students, and they become friends of a sort. Sally sings her songs in the Kit Kat Club, hopes to become famous. The dancers dance. It's an exciting time, but we know, or at least many of us do, that is about to change. The first act ends with the engagement of Herr Schultz and Fräulein Schneider. But in the second act, the bubble begins to burst. As Herr Schultz and Fräulein Schneider celebrate their upcoming wedding with a big party, Ernst returns. And maybe until this time we've thought of him, as do the other people, as being quite a pleasant, bright young man. He comes to the party. He seems ready to celebrate. He removes his jacket. And removing the jacket reveals a swastika armband. And as he finds out more about the wedding couple, he takes Fräulein Schneider aside and warns her that she should reconsider her decision to marry Herr Schultz, who was Jewish. He warns her that things are not as they were, that things may be changing, and she should be careful. And as we hear her sing the song, "What Would You Do?" we hear her quandary, and to actually hear her sing it, her pain, that's maybe not quite as obvious in the words themselves. With time rushing by, what would you do? With the clock running down, what would you do? The young always have the cure, being brave, being sure and free. But imagine if you were me, alone, like me, and this is the only world you know. Some rooms to let, the sum of a lifetime. Even so, I'll take your advice. What would you do? Would you pay the price? What would you do? Suppose simply keeping still means you manage until the end. What would you do, my brave young friend? Suppose you're the one frightened voice being told what the choice must be. Go on, tell me. I'll listen. What would you do if you were me? And when I heard her sing this, I was struck with what a friend of mine had said when he had seen it, what he wrote on his Facebook page, that unlike many of the productions, this one left you thinking how easy it would be to become the oppressor, whereas the others left you thinking about how easy you might become the victim. The dancers reappeared shortly thereafter in suits, all looking the same. Their bright colors, their bright clothes were gone. They were no longer individuals. They've made their choice. Yes, I still love the song of cabaret, but the cabaret called life is not just full of bright colors and music. The last thing I read before going to bed last night was a news article about Yasmin, who came here 6 years ago under the Dub scheme, as she was an unaccompanied minor living in the jungle. And actually, I met Yasmin in Calais, in the jungle. She was one of 3 Ethiopian girls who came here under the Dub scheme in one particular day, and I was down in Lunar House the day they arrived, along with a number of other young people. She'd been imprisoned in Ethiopia as a teenager without trial for participating in demonstrations against the oppressive government. Gang raped and abused by the soldiers, she was freed after a family member paid a bribe, and she fled, ending up in Calais. She was lucky. There was the Dub scheme. She's made a life for herself here. Her 4 younger siblings remained in Ethiopia with their parents. But her mother died several years ago, and her father died in April 2021. A neighbor took them in, but forced them into domestic labor, made them quit school, and has been abusing them, especially the oldest daughter, the oldest of the siblings. Last October, Yasmin applied for her younger siblings to join her here under family reunification. And you may have heard the government talk about, well, yes, we still have family reunification. But last month, their application was denied. According to the Home Office refusal letter, there's no provision within our immigration rules for someone to be allowed to travel to the UK to seek status or temporary sanctuary. Whilst we sympathize with people in difficult situations, we are not bound to consider status claims from the very large numbers of people overseas who might like to come here. Those 4 children will either end up spending their lives enslaved there. The girls are at risk of being married as children. The oldest 2 have already undergone female genital mutilation. The 3rd one probably will as well if they don't leave. Their only choice now is to stay there, or to risk their lives in boats and to come here, or come somewhere, anywhere. But here is the obvious place, because Yasmin is the only relative they have left. And at 23, with a life and a home, she would like nothing more than to have them. And I woke up this morning to a news report about the Equality and Human Rights Commission, which appears to not be in favor of either when it comes to people who are transgender. And then I opened Facebook and read of the shocking death of a 34-year-old friend. For me, coming to the cabaret that is life means coming to all of it. The fun and the laughter, but also the hard decisions that have to be made about when to stand up and fight, to continue to speak truth to power, even when you just want to hear the music play, and to remember that you only have a limited time for all that, because we never really know how long that time will be for any of us. Start by admitting from cradle to tomb, it isn't that long a stay. Life is a cabaret, old chum, only a cabaret, old chum. And I still love a cabaret, and I'm still doing my best to grab all of it, as anyone who's seen my Facebook postings will know today. This also led me to think of a song that I learned from Rabbi Yitzhak's Hankin, an American rabbi, called Teach Us to Treasure Each Day. And so I'm concluding my sermon thoughts with Vince singing that song. You've heard us sing it before. The words are fairly repetitive. I think you'll get it, or you can simply listen.
Yeah, it goes into a sort of chorus which just says, teach us to treasure each day, a few times. Teach us to treasure each day. Teach us to treasure each day. That we may open our hearts to your wisdom. Teach us to treasure each day. That we may open our hearts to your wisdom. Teach us to treasure each day. Treasure each day. Teach us to treasure each day. Treasure each day. Teach us to treasure each day. Again, maybe you'll join in this time. Treasure each day. Teach us to treasure each day. Treasure each day. Teach us to treasure each day.
We continue now with our concluding prayers as, I can't remember what we decided to do, 520 and then 213, right?
Yeah.
So please rise and turn to 520 for the first page of the Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shavek l'adon hakol, l'ateit gudula rotze b'reishit, asher semchochenu l'yached et shemo, v'gor aleinu l'hamlit malchuto. V'anachnu chorim, u'mishchachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושיב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגבי מרומי. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, ארץ מלכנו אפס זולתו, כתוב בתורתו, ידעת היום ושמות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא אלוהים, בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת עינו.
Let me turn to page 213. So remember that we look 213, 213, sorry. As we look towards that time when we will have that world that we all hope for and that we're all striving to build. And then, are we singing or are we just reading?
Singing.
Good, okay.
If you wish.
Yeah, good.
And I said before that I get something extra out of singing something where I know who wrote the music, and you all know who wrote the music to this one, because Rebecca Singerman Knight put some music to these words from Judy Chicago. And then all that's divided us will merge, and then compassion will be wedded to power, and then softness will come to a world that is harsh and unkind. Then men and women will be gentle, and then both women and men will be strong, and then no person will be subject to another's will, and then all will be rich and free and varied, and then the greed of some will give way to the needs of many, and then all will share equally in the earth's abundance, and then all will care for the sick and the weak and the old, and then all will nourish the young, and then all will cherish life's creatures, and then all will live in harmony with each other and the earth, and then everywhere will be called Eden once again.
As we worship before you, O God, we think of those who once shared with us the joys and burdens of life and who are no longer in our midst. The sorrow of bereavement is softened by the bond of love which continues to unite us with our dear ones, and by our cherished memories of them, which we will always carry in our hearts. May all that was good in their lives remain with us as an influence for good. Teach us at all times to put our trust in you and to praise your name. And we continue with the Kaddish on page 524, as we think of those whose yard site is this week. 524. Ivor Kiverstein, the brother of Keith Kiverstein. Natalie Passau, the sister of Dominic Schultz. And I, of course, am thinking of my friend Kevin.
Janet, and I remember Helen Green, who joined yesterday.
Okay, Helen. Any other names? Sorry, but
Charles Arnold. David Cools.
David Close. Thank you. For all those whom we have named, for those whose names we hold in our hearts, and for those for whom there is no one left to say Kaddish, we say together, Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabba, v'yalma devrach Yerutei v'yamlich Malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayei rechol Beit Yisrael, b'gala v'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabba mevorach le'olam lo me'amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitvar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitalei v'yitalal shmei d'kudisha baruchu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata. Tishbachata v'nechemata. Da'amiran v'yalma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shalom rabba min Shemaya. V'chaim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Osei shalom v'imromav. Hu yasei shalom aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yal kol b'nei Adam v'imru. Amen. And we resume our seats, and by way of concluding song, we're going to sing Biyad
There's any announcement?
Do. I'm not sure there are any announcements either. There's Shabbat morning service tomorrow, led by Dominic Schultz, so I'm sure she'd be very happy to see people here.
Book crashes at
But
whatever time
book crashers
10 o'clock, wasn't
on Zoom.
No, it's,
Or-
no, it's actually live.
Is it live? Is it
Live.
tomorrow? Okay, great.
In the
Book crashers. Yay. Live. Back to seeing people. Panim al panim. Face to face. That's nice.
So on page 525 is Adon Olam, and we'll use a setting for just the final verse, which always strikes me as a meaningful verse for a Friday night. My soul I give to you, my spirit in your hand. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Hold me in your hand. Draw me near, I shall not fear, safely in your hand.
We rise for a concluding benediction. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. Let us say, Amen. And we do have Kiddush, and there's a little bit extra to it because